Okay, so what if everything we think we know about controlling our lives, our thoughts, even why we suffer? What if that's not the whole story? Like maybe there's some unseen force, something powerful, really shaping things behind the scenes.
That's exactly what we're diving into today. We're exploring this really extraordinary perspective on the human mind, our breath, and an ancient idea about spiritual freedom,
Yeah.
about liberation.
Yeah.
And the sources we're looking at, they offer this wisdom that's not just, abstract philosophy. It's practical stuff that really challenges how we normally think about our bodies and our spirit.
Absolutely. So the mission for this deep dive is to explore what one text calls the empire of air. Sounds fascinating, right?
It really does.
And how this empire's air has this surprising deep influence on, well, everything who we think we are, why we suffer, and maybe what the whole point of being human actually is. We're getting into some foundational questions here.
And the core idea, the place this text starts from, is pretty bold. It basically says the highest goal for human life isn't just, getting through the day.
Uh-huh.
It's achieving this eternal divine state of God. They call it mukti, or liberation.
Okay, liberation. We hear that term. But what's different here?
What's really revolutionary and why it's so central to our discussion is when this happens. It's not about waiting for an afterlife.
Oh, okay.
It's meant to be achieved right here, right now, in this life, while you're still in the body.
That's a huge claim. Does the text explain why? I mean, why in the body? That really flips the script on a lot of traditions, doesn't it?
It does. It emphasizes you have to attain this liberation while still embodied. The idea is you transcend your attachment to the body and you merge with his divine essence.
So the body isn't the problem, it's the venue, the place where the work happens.
Exactly. It implies that our current existence, the challenge is the whole setup. It's actually the perfect training ground for this transformation.
Okay, so it's not about escaping, but about transforming our relationship with, well, with reality itself, I guess.
Precisely. And this divine presence, the thing you're merging with,
Yeah.
it's described as unchanging, everywhere, all-knowing.
Okay.
It's not limited by time or space or form. No birth, no death, no changes. And here's the kicker. It's not some God out there.
Right.
It exists within every single human being.
Wow.
So if you're listening to this, the implication is ultimate freedom isn't some far-off prize. It's an inner possibility, accessible right now.
That's a lot to think about. And it leads us right into the mind, doesn't it? Because the source seems to put the mind front and center.
Absolutely central.
It says things like birth, growth, getting sick, even dying, all governed by the mind.
Yes, and it goes further. Your very identity, who you think you are, your whole life's trajectory, the mind is running that.
Okay.
But then there's this paradox, right? Human suffering.
Mm.
It's created by the mind,
Ah.
but it can also be resolved by that same mind.
That's putting a massive weight on the mind. If it's the source of the problems and the solutions, how do we actually get a handle on it? How do we, transcend the negative stuff? Does the text give us a tool?
It absolutely does. It says the power to change our fate, to overcome challenges, lies uniquely within us, within humans.
Okay.
Specifically through using our intellect, or what they call discrimination, the ability to tell the difference between what's real and what's not, what helps and what harms. That's the key, using that insight to shift our own mental state.
So discernment, being able to see clearly.
Exactly. And it also stresses that living ethically, morality, virtue, there's not just nice to have. It's presented as essential for this whole spiritual evolution thing. So yeah, the mind is definitely framed as both the problem and the solution. And our own intellect is the lever we can pull.
Right. The problem and the solution all wrapped up in the mind.
Yes. And as we kind of unpacks the mind's power, we find out it's tied to something even more, fundamental. Something the source calls the empire of air.
The empire of air. Okay, that sounds grand and a bit mysterious. We think of air as, oxygen breathing. What exactly does this text mean by air?
It's a great question. So here, air isn't just the stuff we breathe. It refers to Viyu or prana. Think of it as a subtle life force. It's the energy that underlies all our physical and mental stuff.
Prana, okay, like life energy.
Exactly. It manifests through the breath, sure, but its actual nature is described as incredibly fine, like way more subtle than an atom.
Wow.
So subtle our instruments can't detect it, but it's profoundly influential. In fact, there's this startling quote from a sage in the text, "Mind is nothing but air."
Wait, say that again? Mind is nothing but air.
Yeah, flat out. The mind only functions because of this subtle air. Take away the air, the mind doesn't work, period.
That completely reframes everything. We think of the mind as brain activity, right? Neurons firing. This suggests something much more energetic, subtle, like our breath and thoughts are directly linked in a way we just don't normally consider.
Precisely. It points to a foundation that's way subtler than just the physical brain.
So how does this air, this value, actually work in the body then? How does it connect?
Well, it's deeply integrated. It's essential for the body even forming and for it functioning day to day. It operates through this incredibly complex network the source calls nadis.
Nadis, like energy channels.
Kind of, yeah. Think of them as subtle pathways for this life force, maybe analogous to the nervous system but on an energetic level. They regulate all our vital processes. And the text actually gives a number 72,000 of them.
72,000.
Yeah, it gives you a sense of the sheer intricacy of this internal empire of air. It also talks about 10 major values, specific types of this life force, each handling different jobs in the body.
Okay, so it's not like you're supposed to feel 72,000 channels, but it paints a picture of this incredibly complex, energetic system underlying our physical existence.
Exactly. It's about the principle, the complexity.
And if this air is subtler than an atom, undetectable, how do they even know about it? How is it experienced in this tradition?
Good question. It's known primarily through its effects and through highly refined states of inner awareness. People who've cultivated that sensitivity can perceive it. The text also describes that its qualities, its particles are apparently in constant motion, always changing. And it's not all the same air. It gets categorized. There's like dense or poisonous air, there's healing air, and then there's this divine air called a root vayu.
A root vayu. Divine air. What's that?
That's presented as the purest, most refined form of this energy. It's often linked to spiritual realization, deep insight, profound well-being.
Interesting. Are there any like everyday examples where we might see this connection between air and our state? Something relatable?
Yeah, actually, the source gives us a simple one, laughter.
Laughter.
It says laughter releases air that's rich in lactic acid, and that creates the feeling of joy, of lightness.
Huh. So the physical act releases a certain quality of this air affecting our mood.
Exactly. It's a kind of visceral illustration, the quality of this subtle air influencing our emotions directly.
That's fascinating. And it's not just internal states, right? You mentioned the text says this air governs all five senses.
That's right. Our perception of the world, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, is fundamentally shaped by this unseen force, according to the text.
It really makes you stop and think. If this air is everywhere, influencing everything we perceive, but we can't measure it, what subtle influences are constantly shaping our reality without us even noticing?
Exactly. And the text clarifies, the divinity isn't in the eye or the ear itself. It's in the inner awareness behind the senses. The air is what kind of animates that connection, allows the perception to happen. It's about understanding the subtle mechanics behind it all.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up a bit. To recap what we've dug into today. We started with this really profound goal for human life, self-liberation.
Right, Mukti.
Not in some afterlife, but right here, now in this body. Yeah. Then we looked at the mind's role, this double-edged sword.
Yeah, the architect of our suffering, but also the key to transcendence.
With our intellect, our discernment being the tool we need to use. And then we uncovered this fundamental, often ignored influence of air, this vayu or prana.
This subtle life force that shapes the mind itself, and how we even perceive the world through our senses.
Yeah.
It's a pretty radical way of looking at our inner workings, isn't it?
It really is, a whole empire of air inside us. So, as a final thought for everyone listening, if the mind really is, in some fundamental way, connected to or even made of this subtle air, and if this unseen force shapes our identity, our suffering, our very perception, what power could you unlock just by paying more attention to your breath?
Consciously.
Yeah, that's what everyday things, maybe a deep sigh, a moment of focus, even that burst of laughter we talked about might actually be revealing this subtle empire of air at work in your own life right now. Something to consider.
Today, we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea from spiritual thought. What if the key to taming your own mind, to finding some peace and control, was as simple and as vital as the air you breathe? Our source material draws a direct line between the two, so let's explore that. And right away, we get hit with one of the biggest questions there is. It's asking us to look past the day-to-day grind, beyond just paying the bills and getting by, and to really ask ourselves, is there a bigger reason we're all here? So, what's the answer? Well, according to the text we're looking at, the answer is a big, resounding yes. There is a supreme goal. It kind of pushes back on this whole idea that life is just, being born, working, eating, sleeping, and then that's it. It suggests we're actually built for something much, much bigger, a purpose that's totally spiritual.
This ultimate goal has a name, Mukti, which means liberation. But here's the really crucial part, the detail that changes everything. This isn't some reward you get in the afterlife. The text is very clear that this state of divine awareness, this connection to God, is meant to be achieved right here, right now, while you're still in your body.
So how in the world do you do that? It really comes down to a fundamental shift in how you see yourself. It's about letting go of the idea that you are just your physical body with all its aches and pains and limits. Instead, it's about realizing and then merging with this divine spark that, the text says, is already inside every single one of us. You're not trying to find something out there. You're uncovering what's already in here.
Okay, so to get a handle on how to achieve this liberation, we first need to talk about the main tool we have for the job, which also happens to be the biggest obstacle we face, and that's the mind. Our source presents the mind as this master architect, the one building your entire reality.
And just think about how much power it has. It's not just your random thoughts. According to this, your mind is in charge of your body's entire journey, from birth and growth all the way to sickness and death. It literally builds your identity. It controls your life. It creates your suffering. And here's the paradox, right? The very same thing that causes all the pain is the only thing that can fix it. The mind is the battlefield, the weapon, and the prize, all rolled into one.
Which, of course, brings us to the absolute heart of the matter. I mean, if the mind is this all-powerful director running the whole show, then you have to ask, right? Is there anything that controls it? Is there a power behind the throne? And the answer our source gives is, well, it's stunning. And honestly, it's a little weird at first. For ages, it says, wise sages have declared this simple truth. Mind is nothing but air. I know, what does that even mean? But stick with me because this one little phrase is the key that unlocks everything else.
The text uses this amazing metaphor to explain it. It calls it the empire of air. It's a great way to think about it, right? Because this force, this vayu, or prana, as it's also called, is this invisible, powerful current of life that, according to this, is the real foundation, not just for your mind, but for your entire existence.
And let's be super clear here. The connection is absolute. Your mind, with all its amazing reality-bending power, is completely dependent on this air to do its job. It's that simple. No air, no thoughts. No breath, no mind. It is literally the fuel for the engine of your consciousness. Now, when the text says air, it's talking about something much more subtle than just the oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere. It's a life force. And to really get how it works, we've got to peek under the hood and look at the amazing system it uses to move through us.
Get ready for this number, 72,000. That's the number of distinct energy channels or nadis that our source says are running through your body, forming this incredible invisible network. It's not something you can see with a microscope. Think of it as the subtle wiring that carries the electricity of life itself.
And flowing through this vast web are 10 major currents of life force, known as vayus. And these aren't just some abstract concepts. They are the invisible managers of your entire system. I mean, they're regulating everything from your heartbeat to your digestion. They even control how you experience the world through your 5 senses. This air is described as something more subtle than an atom, constantly moving, constantly changing. Okay, now here's where this all becomes incredibly practical for our daily lives. The quality of this internal air isn't fixed. It changes based on how we feel. The source says that things like deep breathing, genuine joy, and even just a good laugh, they generate a healing kind of energy. But on the flip side, stress, anger, all those negative emotions, they produce a toxic, poisonous quality of air that actually harms us from the inside out. So, here it is, the big takeaway. If the mind is controlled by this air, and we can influence the quality of that air, well, then that means we have a direct handle we can pull to change our own reality. This is where knowledge truly becomes power.
And this brings us to what might be the single most empowering statement in this whole text. It suggests that we are not just puppets of our fate or victims of our circumstances. We as human beings have a unique ability to rise above it all.
So how do we do it? How do we actually use this power? The source points to two tools that we all have access to: our intellect, our awareness, and living an ethical life. By using our minds consciously and by making good choices, we can literally, intentionally change the quality of that internal air. We can change the very foundation our mind is built on and shift ourselves from suffering toward that state of liberation. So, we'll leave you with this final thought, this powerful metaphor. If your breath is the wind and your mind is the sail on your ship, and now you have the map that shows how they work together, the only question left is the one that only you can answer. Where are you going to choose to go?